What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have the latest on Tropical Storm Erin as it's approaching its west-southwest direction, and it's approaching better conditions set to potentially rapidly intensify. We also have another area of interest that was tagged last night in the Gulf region near the Bay of Campeche that we're briefly going to talk about today as well. So we're going to go ahead and talk about all those things as well as a few other tropical things like the Climate Prediction Center's latest forecast, and all of that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. So this is what we got for you right here. This is the latest from the National Hurricane Center on Tropical Storm Erin. We'll go ahead and discuss this first right here. We have the latest public advisory as of 11 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Erin, it continues to move generally westward, expected to become a hurricane in a couple of days. It's currently moving west at 265 degrees, so it's south of west at 17 miles per hour. So it has been slowing down quite a bit, so we're going to want to watch that. Its maximum sustained winds are at 45 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure remains 1,004 millibars. Tropical storm force winds extend outward 60 miles from the center. So yes, it is still a small storm right now, but it has expanded in size, and this is something we're going to want to watch, especially as the system starts to organize further and starts to strengthen in the next little while. Here is the latest discussion for you right here. Erin continues to have a ragged overall appearance with one burst of convection just southwest of the center and skeletal convective bands elsewhere in the northwestern semicircle. Various subjective and objective satellite imagery estimates are at around 30 to 45 knot range, with those little change over the past several hours. A just received scatometer overpass shows winds near 40 knots, which is 45 miles per hour north of the center, and they will hold the intensity at 45 right here. So that's what we got right here. Erin continues to struggle to intensify, likely due to its track over persistent sea surface temperatures of 26 to 27 degrees Celsius, which is about 79 to 81 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you living in the United States, and entrainment of dry and stable air. The forecast track also keeps the system over the marginal SSTs for another 24 hours or so, followed by a motion of over increasing sea surface temperatures to reach 29 to 30 degrees Celsius, which is about 84 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you living in the US and doesn't use the metric system. That is in the mid-80s right there, and that is very favorable in general for tropical development, and this is expected to happen by the end of the forecasting period. The cyclone is continued in a favorable low to moderate shear environment, and this is likely to continue for the next 72 hours. This evolution should allow Erin to significantly intensify, with the cyclone forecast to become a hurricane in 2 days and a major hurricane in 4. After 72 to 96 hours, Erin may encounter increased northerly shear as it tracks northeast of a large upper-level anticyclonic cyclone forecast near Hispaniola. The intensity guide suggests a lower rate of intensification at its time, although the strength of the shear of the cyclone we'll encounter is uncertain at this current point in time. And this is the main kicker that we have for you right here. It's expected to get up to 50 miles per hour by the next advisory, potentially, and then 60 miles per hour in the next day. And then it's expected to become a hurricane by Friday, and then a Category 2 by Saturday, major hurricane strength on Sunday, and then we're at a 120 mile per hour Category 3 5 days out. So that is something you're going to want to watch and you're going to want to pay attention to, especially if you're in the Antilles and Bermuda as well, because there still could be some impacts for you guys that we're going to want to watch right here. And here's the latest we have from the cone from the National Hurricane Center. Generally staying north of the Lesser Antilles now, which is some good news right here. But Bermuda, you might be in the line of fire if the system starts to turn a bit further to the east than anticipated by some of these models. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. But still, expected to become a hurricane by Friday and then a major hurricane by Sunday. And I would say that by the time it gets to around 50 degrees west is when I would start to see the intensification period really start to take off, because by that point you're in 28 degrees Celsius waters, and we'll show you the map in just a second. But that's kind of your deal right here, and I would not be surprised if the system starts to intensify pretty explosively by the time we get north of the Lesser Antilles and into the southwestern Atlantic, primarily due to how warm those waters are and how much ocean heat content there is, and considering the fact that there is still going to be low shear for quite some time moving forward. So that's what we have for Tropical Storm Erin. Let's go ahead and see what the latest public advisory is that just came out. So this is breaking as I'm recording this. A tropical wave over the Yucatan Peninsula is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. The disturbance is forecast to move west-northwestward and cross into the Yucatan today with no significant increase in organization. Some development of the system is possible after it emerges off the southwestern Gulf. While it moves northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour, it's then expected to move inland over the northeastern eastern Mexico by late Friday, which would diminish chances for development. So this is going to be a pretty quick tag right here. If this doesn't develop in the next couple of days, it's not going to really do it. They're only giving it a 10% chance now, and I know models from what I've seen from my tropical team have backed off on this, so that is some good news for those tuning in from the Yucatan, as well as parts of the east coast of Mexico and southern Texas as well. So we'll still keep an eye on it just in case something unexpected happens, but by and large, what we're seeing right here is good news because the models have backed off on this, so we'll have to pay attention to that moving forward. Moving over to satellite imagery, here's the DAPIA website. We're going to go ahead and pull up the latest frames on Erin for you guys. Here is this, the satellite infrared for you right here. As you can see, it is a little bit ragged right here, but it is starting to potentially show that shrimp shape that is somewhat infamous among tropical cyclones and developing tropical cyclones. Seizure warning for those prone to flashing lights. I do apologize for that, but what you're seeing with the satellite imagery, at least with that latest frame, is a little bit concerning for me. All it needs to do is close off that dry air potential over here, get more convection to mix it out, and from then on out, as it moves into warmer and warmer waters, it's going to take off pretty quickly. So that's what we have for you right here. Going on right here. It's already, I would say, just south, or if not, it's just hanging on or just south of that 16-degree north region right here, based on what I'm seeing with satellite imagery. So you're going to want to take this very seriously. This is continuing to dive further and further and further to the south, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. That's why if you're in the Lesser Antilles and in Puerto Rico, you're still kind of on notice from the Pat's Path Predictor channel and on Storms United because of that potential threat. And even if the system doesn't directly impact you, there could still be some outer bands. There still could be some rip currents, some storm surge to deal with in those regions. So that's something you're going to want to take seriously. But based on the satellite analysis, the fact that this is producing convection still is somewhat impressive, and I have to give props to the system for fighting the heck out of the environment right here, because it's still dealing with some stability issues, but the main hindrance is actually the water temperatures, which is something, at least in this day and age, you don't normally see. So that is something to keep a close eye on, and we'll continue to monitor it as more information comes in. But with that being said, let's go ahead and show you the track models and the intensity. Right here, here's the latest track models as of 12Z, definitely shifting a bit more to the north and more concentrated right here, but there is a bit more of a spread about 96 hours out, whether the system moves further to the west or not. Or heads potentially closer towards Bermuda. So you're going to want to pay attention to that and see how these trends go if you are in the Antilles, Puerto Rico, and in Bermuda, because this could be a potential threat for you guys, especially if the system intensifies at a rate that I'm a little concerned that it might do. So that's your track models we have, at least compared at the 12Z. Here is your intensity guidance that we have for you pulled up. Intensity guidance still shows a very high ceiling with this. We're now seeing multiple models going to get up to Category 4 intensity by 5 days. That's something we didn't see previously. We're also seeing a lot of high-end Category 3 intensity as well in the long run. So that's also quite a concerning trend we are noticing with the H-Wharf, the halves runs, the CTCI, as well as a few other runs as well. The aggregate is continuing to show more and more intensification, and this is why I've been saying, for like a broken record, it may be a 5 mile per hour tropical storm. It may not seem like it's a bad thing, but this is a scary 45 miles per hour in part because of the conditions it has ahead of it, and in part because of the stuff that it's going to be moving through. You're going to have warmer waters. You're going to have warmer ocean heat content to take into account. You're going to want to pay very close attention to that detail. Let's go ahead now and show you some forecast models right here. Let's go ahead and pull up the hurricane run, see if we can finally get Erin on the H-Wharf and the H-Mon. We do. The 12Z runs are loading in at this current point, but let's go ahead and take a quick look at the 0Z and the 6Z just for some context right here. Here's what we got for the H-Wharf at 0Z. Initialized pretty well, had a kind of around 1,004 millibars or so, not really intensifying until we get to about 33 hours out, and then it starts to get to a stronger tropical storm. This is about 60 to 65 miles per hour based on pressure alone, but looking at main sea level pressure winds, yeah, this is about 45 to 50 miles per hour. Then you're starting to notice that intensify to 60 miles per hour, then 65, then hurricane strength in 2 days by the H-Wharf as the system continues to move through. It really still remains a small system, curiously enough, so you're going to want to watch that. And small systems do have a tendency to rapidly intensify at a very fast rate once they enter very explosive conditions like we're going to be seeing in the southwestern Atlantic. So we're going to want to watch and see how this system evolves. But the fact that this is still modeled to be a pretty small system, it does kind of tell me that, okay, we might be seeing a pretty significant intensification period, and we're going to want to watch that because intensifying systems like what we've seen in the past with, like, first of all, Hurricane Lee back in 2023. We also had Hurricane Milton, which was a very infamous example, Hurricane Otis as well. Those were all, the latter two were relatively small systems, but they really ramped up in intensity very fast. And Milton in particular underwent an eyeball replacement cycle and then went ahead and intensified to Category 5 strength again in the Gulf. So that was something to watch as well. But then as you start to notice right here, it does gain some latitude. We're looking at close to major hurricane strength by the time we get to about 4 days out or so at the 0Z run. Moves north of the Lesser Antilles at this current point, but your pressure still bottoms out, and the H-Wharf has this around Category 3 strength, although the storm expands greatly in size by this point, so you're going to want to pay attention and see how that ultimately will pan out. Here is the 6Z run right here. 6Z is similar situation. You have it not really strengthening that much for the next day or so, and then it starts to intensify at a pretty fast rate as it moves into better conditions. Matter of fact, we go from 998 at 42 hours out to 66 hours out. We're at 973 millibars. That is already rapid intensification right there, forecasted by the 6C H-Wharf, and this is a mid-range Category 2 hurricane that is being forecasted by that point, and then we potentially get up to mid to high-end Category 3 strength by the time the system moves further and further to the west right here. So you're looking at least a high-end Category 3 according to the 6C right here. 12Z is more so in, but even then the 12Z is showing some concerning rapid intensification as well. Go from 998 by 21 hours out to about 962 actually by 48 hours, by 45 hours out. 48 hours out, it's 964. So a drop of 36 millibars in 24 hours is pretty concerning to say the very least with this intensification. The fact that this is a small system too has more capital to play with and more time to really organize and strengthen once it reaches those warmer waters. So that's what we have right here. And this is why I'm saying this is a scary situation right here, where we have a scary type of 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm now, because it's not going to be 45 miles per hour forever. It's going to intensify at some point. The question is, when does it enter that warmer water? So here's what we have with the H-Mon. So organizing, strengthening right here as it gets closer to the Antilles right here. And then we get to 978 millibars at this point. And then by the time we get to 84 hours out, we're already at high-end Category 3 intensity right here according to the H-Mon. We already cracked Category 4 strength by the time we get to 4 days out. And then by the time this run ends, we don't have the rest of it out. We're still around high-end Cat 3, low-end Category 4, according to this right here. So we're going to want to watch that as well. Looking at the halves A as well, looking at that, let's take a quick gander At that, the 12Z, we have 90 hours out. We can kind of give an idea of what's going to be happening in the next 4 days with this. But the Halves A has the system rapidly intensifying, starting to strengthen actually in the next, I'd say, 12 or so hours, and then really starting to turn up by the time we get to 2 days out. And we're at 962 millibars in a Category 4 hurricane. Granted, I will tell you this right now. That is a very high pressure for that strong of a storm, unless the storm is incredibly small. I think either the pressure is gonna have to come down quite a bit to probably down to the 950s or 940s, or the winds are going to end up weakening as a result in the next few runs. But still something to pay attention to, and that is something that ends up happening with the Halves A temporarily. Then we get to 948 millibars. Right here, the storm expands in size, and the structure of it's actually somewhat interesting to look at right here. It actually does have a pretty impressive circular structure as it starts to intensify. All the hurricane models really want this to go off by the time this gets closer to the Antilles, by the time we get even before the southwestern Atlantic. Right here, which I think is pretty interesting. Looking at the Halves B now, Halves B is a bit further to the out, but we can give you an idea of what's been going on with this. Halves B has the system strengthening pretty quickly after the 24-hour period. By the time we're at 48 hours out, we're at a 980 millibar system, likely a hurricane already. And then by the time we're 72 hours out, that's 3 days from now, as the system starts to move north of the Antilles, we're looking at a Category 2 hurricane, then a Category 3 hurricane at one point, and then it continues to grow in size and strength right here. This is Category 4 intensity by the time we're at 4 days out right here. So you're going to have to take this very seriously. We're at 934 millibars right here based on what we're seeing with the Halves B. Now, granted, this is a bit of an outlier right here, but the point still stands that this is expected to intensify at a very fast rate, and you're going to want to watch this very closely because that could be an indicator of how the rest of the season is going to go as more of these tropical waves come off the coast of Africa, as the conditions can only continue to get better and better by the time we get to late August, early September as well. So that's something you're going to want to watch. And the main thing we are watching right now is the water temperatures. When will it get to that point where the SSTs get warm enough? That's the main question that we have. Here is your SST map for you right here, where it's currently situated based on what we've seen right here. I apologize for the flashing lights. This is currently at about 16 north, 44 west. Where does that put it in the SST map? Roughly right about here, around 26 to 27 degrees Celsius. It's moving at around 17 miles per hour right now. As it moves further to the west, I'd say by tonight, especially in the overnight hours, we're going to have 27 degrees Celsius fully, and that's over your 80-degree threshold Fahrenheit for your for potential strengthening to start taking place. It can happen in cooler waters, but oftentimes it doesn't. But by the time we get to this magic number right here, now you can go, okay, how is this going to go from here? How is this going to intensify? How are we going to watch this? Then I'd say by about tomorrow, we're going to get in 28 degrees Celsius waters, and that's when I would say crap really starts to hit the fan a little bit in terms of potential intensification. And then by the time we get to the Southwest Atlantic, you're at 29 degrees Celsius, and even if it makes that turn to the north, and when it does, you're still running into 30 degrees Celsius, which is about 86 degrees Fahrenheit right here in this region right here. So not only could this still intensify the further north it goes as it crosses into the subtropics, it's going to have more time to maintain its intensity too. And seeing this pattern that we have right here across the Atlantic is very concerning for me, not just for the Erin right here, but for the rest of the hurricane season as well, because we're not even taking into account the Central American gyre that may start going off pretty soon, as well as maybe another Cape Verde setup that has a stronger ridge that heads towards the United States or towards land. Another thing to watch is the ocean heat content. OHC continues to be a bit of a concern as well. Where it's at right now, about 25 to 30 OHC, but by tomorrow we're looking at 50 to 60, and then up to 100 further down the road. That is something you're going to want to watch very, very closely, and we will continue to watch that here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But before we end the video, I do want to say, I know Weatherman Plus, he shouted me out earlier today in his video. Thank you very much for the shout out, man. I really do appreciate you coming and supporting the Pat's Path Predictor channel, and you being on the stream last night. It was wonderful to see you there. So I really appreciate that. It warms my heart that we're growing as a community and we're getting more people engaged with weather. Also, like I said, we're not going to be streaming tonight because I have other things I need to get done. We're going to let you know when the next stream will be. It'll probably be tomorrow, maybe Friday. We'll decide on those two later down the road. But with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and like the video if you haven't. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And join the Storms United Discord server. Feel free to join that. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.